You called the Trump conviction a travesty of justice in a relatively short piece you wrote for the Manhattan Institute. So why is that the case? Make your case.
Yeah, so you could teach entire courses in Trump law in a law school. I mean, he is a frequent flyer in courtrooms and courthouses around the country, federal, state, civil, criminal. This is quite possibly the weakest case and the most politicized case of anything that Donald Trump is involved in. This is a state prosecution by the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who campaigned in his last campaign on getting Trump. And even though the previous Manhattan DA declined to prosecute this same activity, and Alvin Bragg himself had previously declined to prosecute it, now he felt last year, when the indictment happened a little over a year ago, that this would be the opportune time to prosecute Donald Trump for, okay, let's get this straight, uh, paying money, hush money, to a porn star with whom he had an affair, and misrecording where that money came from, such that it was a violation of business records law, a technical fraud violation there. But those violations have a 2-year statute of limitations. And this goes back to 2016. So how do you get to that? Well, it turns into a felony and the statute of limitations is longer if that business fraud records violation is in furtherance of a further crime. What is that further crime? Well, it's defrauding the election campaign, maybe cheating on his taxes, maybe further business records violations. We don't know, according to the jury instructions that Judge Juan Merchan gave to the jury in this New York case. So it's unclear what that crime too is, and this is a politically motivated ticky-tack technical violation that if this is all that Donald Trump, the real estate developer, did, then he's the cleanest real estate developer in New York. But it's really a travesty that this, the only reason this is being prosecuted is not because he's a former president, not because it's Donald Trump, but because he's running for president again. And Alvin Bragg, as a lot of Democrats do, want to get rid of him and hurt him through this lawfare process. And at the same time, this sham prosecution taints the more serious ones that are ongoing, but now paused, with respect to mishandling classified records in federal court in Miami, with respect to trying to subvert the election process in Georgia, and similar January 6th related activities in federal court in DC. So those are all now paused or stayed, but at least those have some serious allegations to them. This is ticky-tack banana republic stuff. I don't necessarily blame the jury. They're doing their best, even if they might be not have voted for Trump, but the way that the judge acted during the trial, and especially Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor, really bring us all down and further lower the confidence in our institutions.
This is the thing why I wanted to talk about this. We're not like constantly talking about politics here at Dad Saves America. I don't think America gets saved by being partisan political hacks for either party. But civics understanding in our country is not great. We test low on it. Our kids test low on it. And then the trust in the system seems to have collapsed. So the only thing that's less trusted than the Congress is the news media. And if the courts are also not trusted, like, how does a society function if we don't believe that the justice system can be trusted?
We're at a historically low level of societal trust in America right now, low level of confidence in our institutions. With respect to courts, left-wing activists have been attacking, trying to delegitimize the Supreme Court because they've lost control of it through various historical accidents and political machinations and whatnot in recent years. But still, the Supreme Court It's rebounded a little bit from its low from a year or two ago, but it's still much more trusted than, as you said, Congress, the presidency, basically any other institution other than the military, trust in which has also declined. And then, yeah, if you see the courts, if courts are seen as being completely a continuation of politics, that is bad indeed. That is banana republic stuff. That is how societies collapse. That's the story of, among other places, Argentina, which I know very well, which was, very well off through the 1920s, and then
Yeah.
took a wrong populist turn and kind of swung between left and right wing populism through the rest of the century, from which they're now trying to recover. But I mean, Americans' institutions are very much under threat in our polarized time. This is just not good, Bob. Not good.
I think there's going to be there has already been a lot of
And by
sort
the
of
way, John, sorry to interrupt, but
please.
I have to say I'm not, a rabid MAGA Trumper or something like this. I'd rather we have other choices for our election. I'm not going to tell you how I'm going to vote or how I did vote in the last couple of elections, but I'm not, I'm a lover of the rule of law. I wrote my last book about Supreme Court politics and judicial nominations, and surprise, surprise, politics has always been a part of that process. And what's different now is, and this, a parallel to whether the Trump case or our political analysis, this general polarization, you have differing theories in the Supreme Court's case of constitutional interpretation, otherwise, in terms of what policy you might want, that's mapped neatly onto parties that are themselves more ideologically sorted and polarized than they've been since at least the Civil War, if not ever. And so we have this kind of no zero-sum game, battle to the death sort of situation, which again is not healthy.
We have, as I understand it, as you've explained, a misdemeanor at best of labeling something a legal expense when it's, essentially a settlement, which I'm not really sure what else you would call settlement money on the books, but a legal expense technically, but that's for tax lawyers to sort out. But a past the point of statute of limitations misdemeanor bookkeeping thing that's covering up gross behavior from a moral standpoint as a father and as a adult male that wants us to live it, be as virtuous as we can be. Like, I don't want to talk to my kids about what Trump did wrong here. That's gross, any more than talking about what Bill Clinton did wrong in the 90s or JFK did in the 60s. All gross. These are gross people. But let's assume that this case is going to get overturned on appeal for the various reasons that it's such a contentious and seemingly small charge. Why is that important? Like, why is it important for there's obviously a whole school of thought saying, no, this is great. This is nobody's above the law in America. This is the rule of law.
Well,
This
it's people who say that kind of liken this to getting Al Capone in jail finally on tax evasion. We can't get him on racketeering and murder and all that, but he did violate tax laws fair and square. We got him. This is not that. This is more Lavrenti Beria of the Soviet secret police saying, "Find me the man, and I'll find you the crime." A friend, mentor of mine, Harvey Silverglate, who's a civil libertarian in Massachusetts, wrote a book about a decade, maybe 20 years ago now, called Three Felonies a Day, saying that most of us who are professionals, we commit 3 felonies a day because there's over lawyering, over too much law, overlapping federal state jurisdictions, ambitious prosecutors who can indeed make up violations and crimes and prosecute whoever they like if they really want to, and especially in high-profile politicized cases like this. That is what's going on. No, I mean, if this were a conviction in one of those other prosecutions, then we could debate it seriously, because I think those are serious charges. Those are colorable and not politicized, regardless of what, again, I don't know why we have such crazy people involved in these stories, but the state prosecutor in Georgia has her own sex scandal and all of that stuff, paying off her paramour. Oh, who knows? But regardless, this is not, finally Donald Trump gets just desserts. This is, he deserves to be in jail. Sure. This, as might as well put him in jail for anything. Well, no, that's not how we should be thinking about these things.
Help me. One of the things that you wrote about in the brief article about the case, calling it a travesty of justice, you pointed to the different things that are probably surface area for appeal. One of them being that Judge Merchan, his direction to the jury was peculiar, and people have talked about this. That I want to make sure I represent this properly. That functionally, he said, the reason these 34 counts, which more or less are all basically triple, quadruple counting the same underlying action.
Well, each time he wrote a check to Michael Cohen to pay off Stormy Daniels was a separate count.
Right. So it's all the same thing. There's not 34 different unique things, really. They're all just like every bookkeeping entry was considered a count. But that the reason this rises to the level of a felony is because it is in the service of this other crime, that this misdemeanor accounting thing is in the service of another crime, which I thought was supposed to be a felony, although it seems like some of them might not be felonies, and some of them might not even have jurisdiction in New York because it's campaign violations.
Campaign finance law. And get this further thing that I didn't put in my article in City Journal was that Trump's team had a former chairman of the Federal Election Commission, Brad Smith, who's a friend of mine, professional colleague, ready to testify as an expert about federal election law, to basically say that, even if everything was true on the facts, that did not constitute a federal election campaign violation. And the judge wouldn't let them bring that evidence in. So that's appealable error as well.
And what was the justification for not allowing a former FEC official to weigh in on whether this underlying crime is in fact even a crime?
It's unclear, to be honest. I mean, again, I wasn't the closest follower of this trial because I have better things to do than follow these weird minutiae. But the ruling had to have been that it wasn't relevant, that it wasn't central. So if the legality under federal campaign finance law isn't central, or the definition of that law, then what is it? Jurors have to conjure up their own other election violation, or, as you said, as you were alluding to, the judge's instruction was, if some of them thought it was an election in furtherance of a campaign finance violation, some of them thought it was in furtherance of tax evasion, others thought it was in furtherance of further business records violations. That was all okay. They didn't all have to agree on what that second crime that the original business records violations were in furtherance of are. Just bizarre. If that's a correct statement of New York law, then I think Trump has a further Sixth Amendment claim, or due process claim, about the propriety of the New York law in the first place, that would allow that kind of jury charge and allow a conviction for this kind of nebulous, undefined second crime.
If you like this clip, we've got more where that came from. Be sure to watch the full video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our new videos as they come out each week.